Welcome back to another video. Today, I'll be reacting to this YouTuber, Jordan Green, my favorite YouTuber. He made a video by 3 biggest mistakes I've made in my 20s so far. So I definitely reacted to one of his videos talking about how he made a mistake leasing a sports car, and I want to see if he made more mistakes. And I'm just gonna react to this video, show what my thoughts of it, and what you should take away from this video.
If I could restart my 20s, I wouldn't change anything. I have exactly zero regrets from my 20s thus far. I'm 24 as I'm filming this video. However, there are a few mistakes that I have made that I would like for you to avoid. I'm assuming that you're younger than I am. Maybe you're 18, 19 years old, or even 20 years old, and you want to avoid making the same mistakes that I've made. Well, these are the biggest mistakes that I've made. Now, again, I have no regrets because these mistakes have shaped me into the person who's capable of passing forth this information to you. However, with this video, I want to pass forth all of the lessons that I've learned with none of the losses. That said, the first mistake that I've made in my 20s, the biggest mistake that I made in my 20s, not the biggest, but one of the biggest, was entering my revenge arc. What was my revenge arc? At the time that I turned 20 years old, 19 going on 20, I was dealing with this girl, and to make a long story short, things did not work out the way that I anticipated. As a matter of fact, she ended up ghosting me. Now, I had been ghosted in the past, but I had primarily been ghosted by girls who I wasn't truly interested in. This was the first girl in my whole life that I was truly, genuinely interested in and saw an actual future with. And within a month, she ghosted me. And I couldn't wrap my head around it. She told me at the time that she wasn't ready for a relationship, and retrospectively, that was probably the truth. Looking back on her behavioral patterns and her spectrum of emotions that she showed me during that month, she probably genuinely wasn't ready.
So I think what he meant by getting to his revenge arc is because, of course, you see videos, you see these Instagram reels of guys, they face some sort of trauma, whether if you were dating or something, and then they would try to get at this villain arc, a revenge arc, saying like, oh, I'm gonna show them, I'm gonna work as hard as I can, I'm gonna get this great physique, I'm gonna make lots of money, and then they try to prove something wrong. I think that's what they mean by his revenge arc. And yeah, I definitely did this as well. I wouldn't say this was like a mistake. I think it was just something that um something that I had to kind of like deal with. I've been to, of course, almost same if not worse situation than him. Yeah, let's see what he says about this one.
But it didn't really matter because at that point in time, I perceived it as she didn't think I was good enough for her. Again, she never said those words, but that's how I perceived that rejection. And as a result, I made it my personal mission to level up so far ahead of her in life that she would go to sleep every night thinking about what a big mistake she made. Now, when I say this out loud in retrospect, it sounds stupid, but that's where I was at the time. And if you've been rejected, especially by somebody that you were truly interested in, or even just rejected by society as a whole, then you might be able to relate to that. You're probably walking around with a lot of resentment toward the person or the people who rejected you, and you want to make them feel inferior because that's how they made you feel, even if they did it unknowingly. I went through that whole arc, and unlike most young men, I actually completed the arc. Again, this happened right around the time I was turning 20, so March 2020 was the climax of that situation.
Yeah, and what he's saying is right. You have all this resentment, and that's why you want to kind of prove them wrong of some sort, to make them feel like, hey, they regret rejecting you. you know they regret doing this bad stuff to you, and that's why you would have to level up. And like of course in my self-improvement journey, I did that. you know I leveled up. I proved them wrong. And I feel like it was to the point where, yes, I kind of got that, but it wasn't the response that I expected. And maybe also I think like, oh, like I just need to work more harder. And plus, the another thing to kind of like want to say here is that he interpreted that as like, oh, like, um, he made these false interpretives, these false kind of like bad interpret. Like I've experienced that as, well, like, I mean, just getting rejected in general. Like, oh, I just interpret it as a very negative thing, and that's why it made me fuel that grind set, that villain arc. And I think that's when I mean, still to this day, you see a lot of like young men doing this, you know, and this could definitely have like a negative impact on their lives, you know.
Fast forward to March 2022, and I actually leveled up so much that I almost felt like interacting with her would be a waste of my time. Granted, there's a lot more to that story than I'm letting on, but that's a different discussion for a different day. The point is, I had that face to face interaction with her in real life, and even though there were no words exchanged, I received the closure at that time that I was looking for, egoically speaking, in that I closed that revenge arc. I had reached a point of satisfaction where I knew that I had become the one who got away. And because of that, because my motivation was so externally driven, all of my success disappeared literally by the end of that year. By the end of 2022, I went from living in my own nice, luxurious apartment, having a brand new BMW, having some designer clothes, some jewelry, things of that nature, all of the material items that a young man wants, to living in my car. Living in my car with probably $1,000 to my name. Why did that happen? Well, there are a multitude of reasons why that happened, but the primary reason is that my motivation was based on an external metric, an external reference point. In other words, her. And once I achieved that goal, I instantly became complacent. Instantaneously, I became very complacent and I lost all of the success that I had worked so hard to obtain because my motivation was founded on resentment. I was moving from a place of resentment, and what I found is that while resentment can be a very potent source of fuel in the short term, generally it burns you out in the long term, and it always catches up to you. Now, the next big
Yeah, like I think definitely true of what he said. That's like the reason why, like, what's the reason why people get making a lot of money? What's the reason that, like, you know people are getting these nice physiques? It's from like an external validation source, and I feel like they're not looking into themselves more often. Yes, it's kind of good for the short term, but I feel like in the long term, if you have to keep relying on that, you'll definitely burn yourself out, especially out of negative emotions. And I definitely faced this before. Of course, of course, in my life right now, I feel like I'm not satisfied, and then I just compensate it by, like I just not really compensating, but like yeah, I'm not compensating, but it's just working a lot hard, right? To make my parents proud, to have a lot of friends, to make girls like me, you know. And it's good for the short term, but I feel like the long term is like truly something that I didn't do, and I feel like that if I had that conversation of myself, what I really wanted to do in life, then I feel like I would have saved a lot of time and a lot of that effort. And I feel like if you're also facing this as well, I recommend don't get too deep into it. Just know it's like not worth it and stuff.
mistake that I made in my 20s, especially in my early 20s, is that I didn't invest enough into myself. Now, what do I mean by that? I spent a lot of money on YouTube equipment, getting new cameras, new mics, and ring lights, and things like that. But I didn't really invest that much money into my own personal development. I'm not talking about the gym. I'm not talking about taking cold showers and things of that nature. I'm talking about taking courses, joining masterminds, joining coaching programs or mentorships, things that the majority of the internet likes to believe are scams, but in reality are the key to success. especially success at a young age. You see, I'm a very stubborn person. That's something you might not know about me. I'm extremely
I mean, in terms of like courses, the internet wouldn't call it as scams when it said like they would always promote like their courses. They say like, "Oh, buy my course, buy my course, buy my course," right? I feel like the second one, I think I would kind of like disagree with this because yes, it's important to invest in yourself. Like, there's many ways to invest in yourself, physically, mentally, spiritually. But if you were to probably invest in these courses, I would highly recommend just be careful of them and just do your research. I never personally spent any of my money, not even a single penny or a single dime on these courses, right? And even without these courses, I'm still doing good. I've been, having a lot of skills, develop a lot of skills. Of course, I watch a lot of YouTube videos, and I feel like it's just enough for me. Um, like I said, there's many ways to kind of invest in yourself. So yes, I definitely kind of like this one. I would somewhat disagree about like these courses. Um, some of the time there are scams. Some people, yeah, did get scammed for courses. So of course, like I said, if you were getting into this one, highly recommend just be careful, be aware, and just do your research.
extremely stubborn. And anyone who knows me in real life can attest to this. I'm extremely stubborn. But while this has worked to my benefit as far as my work ethic goes, it's worked to my detriment in that I tend to have this I'll do it myself mentality. And this is good for taking initiative. This is a big part of the reason why I achieved that success, which I ended up losing later on. But it's bad because I don't go seeking out information in the way that I should, because I'd rather learn by doing. Big mistake. And to your credit, you are already taking that first step toward avoiding this mistake because you're watching this video. And in this video, I'm literally, like I said, passing forth all of the lessons without any of the losses. You don't have to take any of the losses that I took in order to learn these lessons. But YouTube is free. I would actually recommend
Yeah, he said anything about like, oh, I'm just gonna do it myself. I'm just gonna take action. Yes, well, taking action is important. Throughout the process, you want to learn through it, and I feel like there should be like a balance between, that point of taking action and taking that point of learning. And I think that yeah, there should be a balance. Half of the time, or half of the part, yes, you would take action, but at least at the same time, you know, when you're taking action, there may be mistakes. There may be stuff that you did wrong, and you can take as lessons. And then the other half is that you can learn from it, learn more of it, and then learn why you made these mistakes as well. So I definitely agree on that part, but I just like make sure it's a balance.
spending money on courses, mentorships, masterminds, coaching programs, etc. If you can't afford any of that, purchase books. That is one thing that I did do, but I could have done a much better job of that. Invest money, not just time, but money into yourself. Why? Because a lot of times we think about the information as being free. Well, you can find the information for free on YouTube. And this is true. You can look up something on ChatGPT and it can give you the answers. The problem is, first of all, you don't know what you don't know. And because you don't know what you don't know, how will you know what to search up? You see, I've been learning a lot of different things in the past year because at 23 years old, I finally came to my senses and started investing in courses, and it's made a big difference because now I understand why I ended up going broke. Not just from an emotional standpoint, but from a logical standpoint. The information that I lacked, that if I had had the information, I would literally have touched multiple six figures by now. Instead, I'm having to rebuild my brand pretty much from the ground up because I lacked the information because I didn't want to spend $200 on an online course. $1,000, $2,000. I could have spent $5,000 on an online course a few years ago, and I would have saved myself thousands upon thousands of dollars that I ended up losing, And I likely would have made myself 100,000, 200,000, maybe even 300, 400, $500,000, etc. But because I didn't want to spend the money,
Yeah, that's definitely kind of like a point that, hey, if you spend, money in this course, you definitely, yeah, you definitely get the knowledge that you need. It will save lots of time. Yeah, that's something that, like, um, yeah, listened to that. It surprised me. Yeah, I definitely agreed on that. Um, I mean, not just courses in general. It would be from either books, um, programs, or it would be, like I said, I feel like, it's kind of similar to college, right? You invest a lot of money into kind of a career that you like. You develop good amount of knowledge on it, right? You know, you can be able to make lots of money for that, right? Um, yeah, I mean it's kind of like the better way instead of the usual, oh, go spend your time at the gym or spend your time on physically of yourself, buying stuff for yourself, which I'm not downgrading on that one. I feel like yes, it's good, but I feel like now the most important stuff is knowledge. That's why knowledge is very important. Having that education is important. If you can use that to your advantage and it makes you a lot of money, then go for it. Yeah.
on courses, because they're scams, I missed out on all of that information that I could have and should have learned much sooner than I did. And I paid the ultimate price. And if you're not investing in courses, if you're not investing in mentorships or coaching programs, masterminds, etc., if you're not investing in these things, you're paying the ultimate price as well. The ultimate price is time. You think you're saving all of this money by not purchasing these things, by not investing money into these things. But again, you don't know what you don't know. And that time that it's taking you to figure out what you don't know through trial and error is time that you can never get back. You can always make the money back, you can't make the time back. It took me far too long to internalize this, and I hope it doesn't take you any longer than today, the day that you're watching this, to internalize this. Now, the next mistake.
Yeah, like I said from the courses, like if you really want to invest your time to a course, yeah, go for it, invest your money. Just make sure to do your research and of course do your research, and then, look up everything that you need to know about the course. And then, hey, if it's a course you want, then go for it. Um, yeah, I feel like that at that point in my life, if I can instead use the money instead of buying nice things to more knowledge based and more of the learning new information, and then, you know setting my ego aside and putting my ego down, or not putting my ego down, but setting my ego aside, then I feel like I would have been more at a better place at life. So yeah, yeah, I agree with this one.
That I made in my 20s. This right here is probably the biggest mistake. Is I succumbed to pornography addiction. Now, this is a very taboo topic that nobody likes to talk about. But if you're between 18 and 24, or if you're in your late teens, early 20s, etc., the chances are you struggle with this as well. As a matter of fact, I recently saw a study that indicated that 70% of young men between the ages of 18 and 24 struggle with pornography addiction. And rest assured that when I was younger, I was a part of that 70%. Okay, I was probably 5% of that 70%. 5% was literally just me. I was down atrocious. Now, to my credit, entering my 20s, I wasn't addicted, but when I was in that process of losing everything that I had worked for up to that point, I went off the deep end. I fell so far, so hard off of that wagon that by the time I got myself up and dusted myself off, the wagon wasn't even on the horizon. It was gone. It had left me. And so I had to.
Yeah, so with nofap and with porn addiction, yes, it's just bad in general. Um, he said between 18 and 24, their the risk of addiction is higher or something like that. I started earlier, like way earlier than that, and I'm being honest here. But then, good thing I saw self improvement, Good thing I did this thing called NoFap. Good thing I went to Jordan Green's channel, and then he definitely helped me with that. Um, in general, just stay away from these websites. It's just not worth it. It won't fix a hole. It won't fill the void. You know, in your loneliness.
To build my own wagon. Now, in the future, in the near future, if I haven't already, I'm going to make a video talking more in depth about my pornography addiction and how it ruined my life and facilitated pretty much all of the L's that I've taken over the past couple of years. But if you're in that position right now, I'm not going to make you wait until I upload that video. As a matter of fact, I have recently created a resource to help you overcome your pornography addiction and leave lust in the dust in 15 minutes. And not only that, but it is free 99. I wrote a PMO relapse recovery guide. If you don't know what PMO is, this is PMO right here. I wrote a PMO relapse recovery guide specifically to help young men in your situation, to help that 70% join that 30%, to help young men like you overcome your addiction to lust, especially your addiction to pornography, so that you can take control of your life and avoid taking all of the L's that I've taken, so that you can achieve all of the success that I have in much less time. If you're ready to leave your lust in the dust and take control of your life, click the link down below, click the link in the description or the pinned comment.
Yeah. So after that, he's talking about of course, his recovery guide. If you want to join it, definitely just go to his video in the description. But then, yeah, of course, don't go on porn. Don't get on these websites. Yeah. Overall, like this video, like definitely lots of things that I agree with him. Some things that I kind of disagree with him, such as the thing with courses and stuff. But overall, yeah, definitely good video. Yeah, so that's it. That's it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to like, comment, subscribe. My links are in the description down below, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace.